Hey everybody, welcome back to Game Changing Video Series. Psyched to be here with you. This is by a request. I did a recent one with beach hunting tips, and people have been asking me, well, we do not beach hunting, but field hunting in forest. What can you do for us, Professor Wayne? So here it is, some game changer tips, seeded field hunts part 2, coils to the soil. Let's see what we got here. All right, natural finds versus seeded finds. Even my friends bring this up to me a lot of times. Wayne, why are you doing seeded hunts? Natural hunts are so much better. Well, there's pros and cons to both, and we'll talk about them. But the natural finds, there is something special. I can't argue that. I mean, if you're out and you research the place and you get there and you find all this really cool stuff, that's great. I mean, it wasn't seeded. That's all natural. That's something special to remember. This is a collection of stuff from the natural finds picture that Captain Andy, one of my best friends, like a brother to me, put together on his Facebook page, and it highlights like a typical, event for him. Natural Finds Day, and a little bit of everything, kind of like an eclectic collection of coins and jewelry and toy cars, even a little bit of everything. And he's the man. And on the right-hand side, a seeded hunt. Again, a nice collection of assorted finds. And this one, I don't usually post my stuff. I usually talk about other people and highlight what they've done. It's not about me. This isn't about me either necessarily. It's about my family. This seeded hunt was something that I did with both of my sons. So that alone is very special to me, and something that we experienced and we put together as this little Riker box display. So now that means a lot more to me, the fact that we were doing this together than the actual finds. But one point out, and here, if you can see the mouse, I don't know if you can see it, is the first Roman coin I ever found, and probably the only Roman coin I'll ever find. So that was kind of a special. So seeded hunts have that little advantage that sometimes you're going to find stuff that you may not find anywhere else. So you never know. I just want to give a shout out because this opening cover shot was done as a drone footage. And guy's a detectorist, but he's also like this incredible drone pilot. And shout out to you, and thanks Scott for doing the hunt, the drone for it. You gotta, I'll point him out, you'll be embarrassed, but down in the front row is Captain Andy right in the front, and I'm standing in the back with my sons in the back, kind of holding the back up. But the most important thing, well, I don't care whether you're talking natural hunts or seeded hunts, is really the having fun, enjoying the hobby. On the left-hand side is a picture. I've used it before, and some of you may have recognized it. These are some of my hunting buddies. They're pretty happy in this picture. And this tailgate shot that we did, it almost looks like a seeded hunt with a number of finds there, and a little clowning around in the background with Detective John. But the thing here is that was a natural hunt, and that was done at a Boy Scout camp that I had researched. And we got there, and to be frank with you, it's the first time ever I've been at a Boy Scout camp, and it was a virgin camp. No one had ever been there before. It was clear because the number of finds that we had were unbelievable. Early 1900s camp, and it had a lot of wheat, some silver, a lot of tokens too, like weird kind of stuff that the kids must have been playing around with. So that was kind of cool. And on the right-hand side is a seeded hunt. A lot of fun that we had too past year, our first annual pirate seeded hunt. And these guys are getting ready to cook here. And it was a great day, great day. Now, just to point out, just on the little left-hand side, I mentioned this in another video, and I'll mention it here too. You see these little red flags or orange flags on the corner, and it's not a highlight of it, but those little corner flags, that's a detector test garden. And I set that up kind of like a pre-hunt event. And I wanted to mention that only because a test garden, I'm going to be doing a future video on that, because people have been asking me, like, how do you make a test garden? How do you do a test garden? And that's a great way to practice before the actual event. So the best that anyone got on the test garden, there were 9 items hidden. And the best that anyone got were 9 out of the 10, which was pretty amazing because there was everything there. I mean, from bottle caps to nails to gold rings, silver rings, coins, all kinds of stuff. One person guessed 9 out of the 10 correct. But I think the humbling thing on all of this was that I had I think it was a pull tab, and more than one person called it garbage. And it wasn't a pull tab, it was a gold ring. So there was a lesson to be learned there, because at the end I showed them all the stuff that was there, and they were like amazed. Oh my God, that was a pull tab. I thought it was a gold ring. I thought it was a pull tab. Now, granted, in a real hunt, they probably would have dug it because it was a good signal. But if they had passed that up, they would have missed out. So there was a lesson to be learned here, the lesson in all of these hunts to learn. Now, I'm going to get into like some pros and cons about the hunt, and I'll get into the tips at the end. But I'm not advertising. One of the things, I have a disclaimer on my next slide, but I'm not advertising any brand in particular. And right now, White's is out of business, so they can't really advertise for them anyway. I've been a White's person for a long time, but I'm kind of like the kid with me. I'm like a detector collector because I have almost all the brands I've used or tried. But I just use this as an example because I had the pictures. And it was the pros and cons with coil sizes. Like when you do a beach hunt or many hunts, there's coil rules, like how big a coil can you use. On the beach, there's usually a set size, how big it can be. In the field, usually less so. And it might be more dictating the environment. If you're doing a big field and it's a huge cornfield, hundreds of acres, and you want to cover more ground, then obviously the largest coil that you have or you can afford would probably be the best thing to go with if you want to cover a lot of territory. Now, if it's a really junky field where there's a lot of trash, then you may want to go with the smaller or the sniper coil. I mean, that's an advantage. Also, if you're in the woods, and I've done a few hunts in the woods, and I claim no expertise in hunts. I'm not a master at all these hunts. There's people out there listening that are a lot better at doing hunts than I am. However, I've done both sides of it. I've set up hunts, done hunts, and one thing that I notice in the woods is that a sniper coil sometimes comes in handy if you got a lot of trees around you or brush and you try to wiggle away. And if you got a big coil, it might cover a lot of ground, but in the woods, it's not going to help you. So I carry both. One of the things that I do, and I think this is worth mentioning, is that when I start off a hunt, if I'm going to do a hunt and it's a field, I'll start off with the big coil first. It's usually larger, but it's also heavier. And at the beginning of a hunt, you're going to be a lot fresher, a little bit more energy. So I'll swing that for a few hours, and then my arm is about ready to fall off. Then what I'll do is I'll take a break and switch over to the smaller coil. And then you feel like I feel like a super hero because it's so light that you can swing now for a couple more hours and really have no problem. So again, there's advantages. And if you only have the standard coil, there's no problem with that. I mean, standard coils work just as well, and they're the best of both, actually. So, whatever you got. But that's the reason that I mentioned these: the smaller coil, the sniper, or the larger. And this was the Super 12 from White's, which is an awesome coil. But okay, here's my disclaimer. The following metal detector products are not being endorsed, and they're not being used here for illustration, and are being used here only for illustration purposes and as samples. There are many different types of metal detecting accessories as there are detectors. And I respect that everyone has their favorites. Like some people like Ford, some people like Chevy, everybody likes a different kind of car. I totally understand. None of my videos have ever promoted one product over another. I'll mention things. People have asked me, like, what do you use? And I'll be honest with what I use, or what does this person use? What did that person use? What did they use to do this? But it's not about that. And if you've seen any of my other series, there's a lot of things involved. I think research is one, and I talk about that a lot. I think location is huge. I think knowing your detector, whatever that detector is the paramount thing. And then lastly, having some luck. I mean, you got to put your coil over it or you're not going to find it. So what I'm showing you now is just to illustrate a few things that I wanted to say regarding hunting tips for fields. And some of it applies to beaches as well. The pinpointer, when I talk about pinpointers for the beach, I'm usually thinking that's overkill because you really don't need it, because a beach hunt, if you've seen the first video, it's all about speed. I mean, 30, 40 minutes, that field is pretty much wiped out. So you don't have a whole lot of time to be wasted on the ground using a pinpointer, trying to find a target. You should be able to pick up that target right away, because that target is probably going to be an inch under the soil, maybe 2 into the sand. It's not going to be deep. Actually, the last time was kind of funny because it was a pirate hunt. And I put out 18 pirate chests, little teeny chests with little tokens in them. But I didn't want to make it so easy that it was an inch under. So I put them anywhere from 4 to 6 inches under. And even a couple of them, I think I put a nail on top or a bottle cap on top just to misread the signal. But the thing is, those are a little bit deeper. So I told people at the beginning of the hunt, one of the rules was that some things were going to be a little bit deeper. It's not going to be your typical hunt. And what was interesting about it, I think, was that usually the hunt, people just fly by. They're zipping around, swinging that coil really hard, picking up all those targets. but this slowed people down because they wanted those pirate chests really bad. So I guess the advantage was they had lasted a little bit longer. It was interesting. It didn't end in 30 minutes. So that wasn't a bad thing. But, you know, it was just a little bit different. So pinpointers, yes, for field hunts, I would recommend them because you're using different soil. All right. You're using dirt versus sand. You're using targets that were probably planted a lot deeper. And I've seen field hunts go anywhere from just surface finds. It looked like they almost just tossed the coin on the surface. I found a peace dollar on the surface one day. I was amazed. But most of the finds are going to be down a little bit. I don't know if anyone's actually seeded a hunt before or participated or volunteered. It's interesting to see. But when you seed a hunt, they do have a special tool. Not everyone uses it. You can just use a regular digging tool and make a little incision and then plant the coin or token. But there is actually a device that they have for it, and it inserts the coin for you or the token. But what happens with that is that it's often at an angle. So if you're used to finds that may be dropped like on a beach in a flat form, they're not really on edge, then it's a little bit different signal that you might get. So it does mess up the signals a little bit. So it may not be your perfect signal. Again, when you got a coin on edge versus on flat, it's going to make a little bit difference. So again, you're going to dig everything. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later with the tips. But what I do want to mention is that there's a lot to choose from, and I don't recommend one brand over another. I've got all of them. I've tried them all. But a rule of thumb, and I believe this to be true for so many things, is that you get what you pay for. All right. If you pay for a $20 pointer that's up here, it's fully waterproof pinpoint pointer for $19.99. I don't know that you can compare that to a $100 one. All right. And that's just, lesson learned. I bought the cheap ones just to see and compare them. They work. I mean, but I've also returned some because I thought it was just a waste of money. So again, buy a good one that should last for a while. One thing is, actually, a friend of mine, this has happened to him. He used his so much, and particularly in the heavy soil, and it's not really designed to be a digging implement. I mean, you can working around in the soil, trying to, find that signal and everything. But the tips do wear out. And some of the manufacturers now have tips that they add to them, or you can get them post market. And one of my buddies gave me a couple, and I was really, really happy with that because it's like a rubber tip that goes on the end and it just preserves it. My friend used his so much, he wore a hole in it. I've never seen one of the carrots or the pinpointers get a hole in it, but he used it so much it actually had a hole. But again, whatever brand you like, whatever works for you, that's cool. But I would recommend it definitely in doing a field hunt more than the beach. Digging tools, again, lots of choices, lots of different things. When I first started, I just went to like a Home Depot, Lowe's kind of a store and just bought a shovel, like a small little shovel, very light, portable, and it served its purpose. But what I found was that in different circumstances, it wasn't really meeting the purpose or what I needed. So I've experimented with different ones. And again, they all have pros and cons. And I just gave you a sampling of them. And you may recognize some of them. You may have some of them. If you're in the market for them, I would read the reviews, talk to people that use them, maybe borrow somebody's that has one to just try what it's like to dig with it. Like these are the pros and cons of it. They have all kind of different designs. And I tried a couple of different ones. I like this multi-purpose one. I thought it was kind of cool. It's like, one of my friends has one and it looks like a medieval weapon because of the way it's designed. I mean, it's got all these things with it. It's a knife on it. It's got a fire start on it. It's like a survival tool. It says it can cut logs. It can do all kinds of stuff. Pretty much indestructible. Well, some of them are. The knockoffs aren't really good. And then you get the longer handled ones, which are great if you want to stand up, save your back a little bit, maybe get some leverage if you're digging. So there's a certain advantage. The T handles, obviously some advantages. The serrated edge, whether it's a Garrett or other make, it really doesn't matter. But the serrated edge, I think, is often a good tool when you have roots that you're dealing with. Sometimes people carry like little root clippers too, and that's not a bad thing. But again, these are all different designs, and it's really what you like. For me, in a seeded hunt, I would generally carry two. I carry a little handheld one in my pocket, in my coin pouch. It attaches to that. And I have the regular shovel, and I use the shorter one. And I just find that it's a little lighter for a long day. It doesn't have the advantage of having the leverage sometimes, and it's not like a crutch if you're really tired, but it works. One thing I'd mention to you though is be careful about how you hold your shovel. That makes a difference because it can give you some false signals. If you got your shovel out hanging in front of where you're detecting, that can throw off your signals too. So just keep that in mind. But I do recommend having two, a small hand trowel. So like if you dig your plug and you're in a field, you dig your plug, it's kind of hard with a big shovel to try to sift through that. A pinpointer might isolate it, but using the little smaller shovel obviously does help. I find it anyway. So I do carry two, and the weight is kind of nominal. The only thing I mentioned over here is like the plastic scoop, and I've had them. You can buy a grain scoop for a couple bucks and drill your own holes in it, or you can buy already drilled, pay a few dollars more. They're okay for the beach, and if you don't do beach a whole lot, it works fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but they are cheap and they will break. Again, which is what you pay for. The plastic shovels, though, when you're using them in dirt or fields, they're not going to last. They're really not going to last. When I first started, probes were really popular, and it's kind of an art. I had, one of the best detectors I ever knew never used a shovel. He used a screwdriver and a probe. And he was a master at retrieving a coin from the soil with leaving no evidence of a hole. He would just pop that baby right out, and it was really an art. But it's kind of like a lost art. I don't see many people doing that anymore. I still have the probe, and it's kind of cool to try it and use it, but I don't use it that often anymore. But that's what's up here. If you don't recognize it, it usually has a little probe to it. You just kind of poke in the ground to feel for it, and it's okay. But I don't usually use it anymore. I also used to carry a knife with me. I used to carry three things. The pouch had three things. It had the digger, a knife, and it had that probe. And it was all kind of like one kit. And it worked great. But that was really before the pinpointers were around too. And pinpointers have changed things. It's like a game changer just having a pinpointer. Good investment if you don't have one. Pouches and finds bag, again, everyone's got their favorites, and I'm not trying to illustrate or advertise one over the other. I've tried a bunch of them. The biggest thing you just want something that's durable. It's going to take some abuse. Canvas tends to be good and durable, but sometimes it's nice to have waterproof. Sometimes it's nice to have holes on the bottom. If you got dirt that goes in, and you can drain out the dirt or sand. That's all good. I actually go to like the retail stores, like even like Walmart, the Home, Home Depot and Lowe's, that kind of place, and they buy these like simple apron pouches, and I like the ones actually from Walmart. And nothing, shout out Walmart, but they have no designs on them. It's just a plain. And what I do is I get like a fabric transfer paper, and I'll print out designs. So I've done them for my friends. I put on like logos. I've done them for the clubs. I'll put our club logo on it, or that kind of thing. And it's little giveaways, and it's fun. And it kind of, you can put one side trash, one side good. It's a good thing to have some kind of a pouch. I don't care whether it's a fancy leg one or waist one or whatever. I think it's good to have something like that because you want something to put your finds in, right? That makes sense. The one I'm currently using is here, but I covet the camouflage one. I think that's really cool. My friend bought that one, and that was a new version. The thing I like about this was that it has the holder for the pinpointer. Most of your pinpointers come with a little sleeve. This sleeve, the disadvantage to it for me was that it's too big. The pinpointer slides right through. My carrot will slide right through it. So I had to put some tape on the end to thicken it a little bit so it wouldn't slide through. One of my buddies had a good idea, was to put the sleeve, attach it to here, and that works out kind of cool. The reason I like this personally is just because it has tons of pockets. I can put my phone in one, and it's protected with a zipper, and I got other pockets inside, tons of pockets. So I can put my little digging tool in there, and my pinpointer. If I want to keep it inside, I can do that too. And I usually use a tether so I don't lose it here. And then it has a little pouch on the side for water, which I think is kind of an important thing to have too. So again, I'm not trying to favor one over another. It's whatever works for you. Everyone has their favorites, and if you shop around, try them out. They're usually not that expensive for what they're worth, what they are. They're worth. And these aprons, you can wash them and throw them away afterwards if they get really messed up. Special finds containers. This is something worth mentioning. I mean, you can go out and buy like a really fancy one, and a lot of the manufacturers make these. I'm kind of frugal. My wife might say cheap, But what I try to do is repurpose things. So if I have an Altoids container, again, not advertising for Altoids, but I like the mints, the peppermint in particular. But the containers are great. You put some cotton in here, some tissue, and you get a nice find. You want to wrap it up, and you put it in there. When you're doing field hunts, it's not the place to, when you find something that might be really cool, but that's really not the place to examine it really detailed, because you're wasting time. Wait until after the hunt and then, sort things out and then see what you got. But if you question or you think you got something really good, then you really don't want to be cleaning it out there either. You could ruin a really good find. This is natural or seed, it doesn't matter. So having like a little container, I like small containers because they can fit in your pocket. And, I religiously wear a vest, and I like the vest because I like pockets. So I used to just put that in the pocket, and it was really great. And, they're really small. You can have more than one. Lately, what I've been doing is I'm using the chewing gum plastic containers and repurposing them for like just like this, loose change, coins, credit card, something that you just want to carry with you without your whole wallet. And they're waterproof, so they're really cool. You can put fines in them too. They don't lock as well as like the Altoids or these, really fancy containers, but they do serve a purpose for storage. And then I go to like the craft store. If you buy it from like a company, then they're going to charge you more. But I go to the craft store, and again, you buy it. Sometimes I think the really tiny ones, the ones that fit in your pocket, like are $1. And I dress them up sometimes, and I'll put like stickers, like you collect stickers, I put a sticker on it. So it makes it look a little fancier, and it still serves a purpose. It separates your finds. The one disadvantage to the Altoid is that they'll be all together unless you use cotton or something to wrap them in. Here you have different container sizes that you can wrap them in. The medium size actually fits in my coin bag, so that's kind of cool. So if I get something a little bit bigger, I can put it in the coin bag. The small stuff can still go in my pocket. So again, special containers, whatever you use, I'm sure there's a lot of different things that you can use out there. Again, repurposed is great, or you can get real fancy and you get some really cool features. All right, so let's get into the meat of it. Takeaway tips for a seeded field or woods hunt. I got like my top 10, all right, kind of like David Letterman, top 10 things. Coil to the soil. I mean, that's like critical, like flush to the ground. You really need to keep that coil on the ground. It should be scraping the ground. You should have a coil cover to protect your coil. You should have that anyway, but keeping it flush to the ground, overlapping your sweeps. Again, they always tell you like the overlap. I would say no one, but most people do not do that, because if you're going to overlap your sweep, it's almost like you feel like you're watching grass grow. It's so slow. But if you have patience, it makes a difference. And overlapping sweeps, I know, will make a difference. Pendulum swings, a common thing is people like swing it so fast. So it's like a pendulum. It comes up in the air is what I'm talking about. Like the coil comes off the ground. It's off the ground. It's not detecting anything. You're missing stuff. So it's getting that motion of keeping it flat on the ground for a wide arc. And when I mean a wide arc, I mean from one side, reaching all the way from one side as far over as you can. This gentleman gave me that tip one day when I was at a seeded hunt, and I was doing okay. But then I was noticing like he was killing it. And he said, this is what I would suggest you do. Just do a wider sweep. You cover more ground. You got a bigger arc, and it's really good. And do it on both sides. And just religiously follow that pattern. Coil shaft, another buddy of mine, Joe, he pointed out to me, he thought my coil shaft was too short. So he said, a little bit longer, you can extend it. So I was teasing him here. I got a picture of him with his shaft out here. It looks obscene, the length of that coil shaft that he has, but he's got like incredible reach. And I'm using my tiny little coil because we were out in the woods, and other friend was using an average, a standard size coil. But Joe had this like huge coil for this field. It was like awesome. All right, so that's the number one, coil to the soil. 2, coil sizes. I talked about that a little bit already. In fields, large coils cover more ground. That's just common sense. But check your rules, because you don't want to show up with this like massive coil. And I've seen like the one that's really kind of cool is like, it's called a Bigfoot. And if you've never seen it, it's worth just looking at. It's like this big rectangular coil. It's huge. They're really hard to find today. I know they still use them or sell them. I think people that have been buying them get them from Europe. But they're really cool. If you have one, it's like super cool. Some hunts would make them illegal because they're so big, but they do cover a large area. So that's kind of cool. In the woods, large coils, like I said, can be cumbersome. That's why I might switch to a smaller coil. The thing with the smaller coil, obviously, you're not covering as much area. So that's one thing. So what I do, as I mentioned before, I start with the large coil if I have it available. If I just have my standard coil, that's cool. And then I switched later to the small one because that makes it like super light. I feel like so strong. All right, really important, probably one of the most important ones on this page. Always recheck your holes, all right? Oftentimes in seated hunts, you'll find multiple targets in a hole, and people grab the first target they find and they move on. And they don't realize that there might be a second target there, or they found a piece of garbage and they thought it was all garbage, so they move on because they thought it was garbage. I can't tell you like how many times at the end of a hunt, when people are going back, kind of going through the fields again, you go over other people's holes. And it seems that it's kind of like weird that you're going over someone's hole, but you'll find that so many times there's still stuff there. And I can tell you that can make a game-changing, result. Go slow, look for signs. When it was kind of funny because the last hunt we did, it turned out that the field had a lot of flat rocks like all over. I think it was just naturally from plowing the field. Well, underneath every single flat rock was something, a coin or a token. So after a while, people get the hang of it. So they were like not even detecting. They were just, when they see a flat rock, they would just like beeline to the flat rock and flip it over. And a lot of times the token or the coin was sitting right there. So, that was like, something that the hunt master or the person seeding thought it was easy and it was like easy to recognize. And they did it and people caught on to that really quick. Logs out of place, especially logs that are moved out of place, or something that's out of place. You can see it was disturbed. It's worth a swing and looking. In a wooded hunt we did a couple years back, what happened was I started rolling logs, like tiny logs, not big ones, but tiny logs. I would roll them over, just use my foot and move them. And I was finding, and for whatever reason, they put the special tokens under those logs. So that was kind of cool. If I hadn't rolled that log, I would have never got those special tokens. I did really well that day. Obvious disturbances in the ground. Like I said, some objects may be found as surface. Like I said, I found a peace dollar one day and it looked like I had just dropped it. It wasn't even buried. It was just on the surface. It was just crazy. I couldn't believe it. All right. Number 5, cover a field thoroughly. Grading can help look for previous footprints or the absence of them. All right. It's both ways. Like I said, if you're following someone's footsteps, it's been detected. It's not necessarily hunted out. That doesn't mean anything. It means that they've detected it. But if you see on the side, there's no footprints. That means no one's walked that, or they may have swung their coil over. It's possible if it was off to the side, but they didn't walk it. So again, it's worth taking a look at it. So I look for footprints and no footprints. Just be observant. Now, a lot of the hunts, and I think this is really cool and really special, they'll have a beginner hunt area or a kids hunt area, family oriented. And that section of the field has been set up just for them. That should be and is off limits to regular detectorists until they have the opportunity at least to detect it. By the end of the day, though, that field is probably going to be finished by them and they moved on. Either they're done or they move on to the other fields. And I can tell you, a lot of people go back to those fields. And it's just the fact that these people are learning, so they may not really pick up all the signals or learn all the signals, and people have done really well in the beginner fields. And they see the beginner fields with cool stuff too. And sometimes, I mean, if it's a kids field, they might do it with kids stuff, so you may not get the same kind of tokens that you might in the other fields, but it's worth a swing. And they're usually right near the beginning, so it's kind of like the end of the day, and you just want to kind of kill a little bit more time to just run it through. We did it one time. It was a pumpkin patch, which was kind of cool. Because it was gourds. I actually picked up a couple of gourds because my wife loves them. And underneath the pumpkins and between the gourds, we were finding some targets. So that was kind of neat. Dig all signals. I mean, that's just like a detecting, given. If you get a signal, it's repeatable, you're definitely going to dig it. As I said, sometimes because the tokens go in at an angle, you want to detect them still. If you get a signal and it's questionable, it's still a signal. So you won't know unless you dig it. All right. Case in point, a buddy of mine had a signal and he says, it's just garbage, Wayne. There's a lot of iron. I said, right, but it's repeatable. I got to dig it. I just got to know. And I dug it and it was iron, but it was like a cast iron. It was actually a really ornate piece of iron. And he felt bad afterwards. I left that there and I said, yeah, well, you got to dig it. You don't know unless you dig it. Check equipment the night before. So you should set up your charging the night before. But I've had this happen to people where the next day they just assume it charged and then they get to the field, they turn it on and nothing. And something happened to the charging overnight, it didn't work. So you definitely want to make sure it's charged overnight and do that for sure. Don't charge it that morning. You're not going to have enough time. But check it before you leave. And if you have the luxury of having a spare detector, that's always good because now you have a backup. But a lot of people don't have a spare detector. So what are you going to do? The other thing just about detectors, I'm not talking about brands, but about detectors, is that if you're going to bring a detector, I don't suggest bringing a new detector that you just bought to your hunt, because that's not the place to learn a detector. And that's what I was talking about earlier about like having a test garden. Setting up a test garden is a great way to learn your detector. Going to like a park, some place there you can, get some garbage, get some coins. It may not be old stuff, but just to get practice pinpointing, learning the nuances of that detector is really important. And a special hunt that you have limited time, and you might be going for some really special tokens, some special prizes, and you want to enjoy it. You don't want to be frustrated because you don't know how to use it. And if you bring a new detector to a hunt, there are other people probably familiar with that, but they're going to be focused on doing their hunt, and they're not going to be wanting to teach you how to use that detector when they're out there trying to detect. So again, just a consideration for them too. Bring it if you want, put it in the car. At the end of the hunt, when people are doing the social thing, then pull it out and say, maybe you can give me some pointers on that. And, when at these hunts, you've got people from all kinds of different areas, different experiences, using different detectors. It's a great way to check different products, talk about different machines, and learn your machine, but after the hunt. All right, that's my 2 cents on that. 9, carry water, stay hydrated. This happens to be big time. If I get dehydrated, I get really sick. And renal stone kind of sick, and you don't want to have that ever, trust me. Trail mix or energy bars, something with a little extra energy always helps. Support, if they have a food truck there, support the food truck, go to the food truck. You can pack a lunch sometimes. I suggest definitely use the porta potty before the hunt, not after the hunt. At the end of the day, it gets pretty nasty. Most of them start off fresh and brand new, and that's the time to use it. So again, a lot of people don't like to have anything to eat or drink during the hunt, but you can get really dehydrated, and that'll affect your day, especially if you're doing a summer hunt when it gets really hot out there. That's not good. And if you're on the beach, you're standing in the sun, you want to have, sunscreen, stuff like that. If you're in the woods, you may want to have bug spray, stuff like that. That's all common sense, but it's important. Lastly, probably the most important, just have fun. Be courteous to others and treat others with the respect you would want in return. It is a competition, there's no doubt. People out there, they may be looking for some really good prizes, some really good tokens. I get that. But the thing is, it should be a fun event for everyone. Courtesy, rule of etiquette, more than anything, that if someone's in front of you, then you won't go too close to them. You don't want to, there's plenty of space out there. You go around them. Someone should also not cut you off. If you're doing a grid and someone should recognize you're doing a grid, they could walk around you. Sometimes you have people bump close together. And what's really frustrating though is when 2 detectors are really close, a lot of times you'll get interferences. So, then knowing benefits by being too close on each other. So you're better off, giving each other space. Then there's plenty of space out there to share. We're all there, common passion for the hobby, sport. We want to enjoy it. And, very, very rarely do I see words exchanged out there because people are they're there to de-stress, not get stressed. That's the whole idea. Support the event. I can't tell you this enough. Participate in the raffles if they have them. A lot of times they do something before, after the event. Thank the organizer. Take a moment, thank the organizer. If it's the hunt master, the same person, thank them. And if they recognize the volunteers that's seated, thank them as well. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into setting up a hunt. And if you're just there to show up to, reap the rewards, that's one thing. But realize that people spend a lot of time doing that. And a ton of work goes in. I can speak to that firsthand. Clean up the garbage. That field should be left in better shape than when you arrived. And a lot of times this is private property that permission was granted. So you want to be able to return. So if they come back and they find like they got craters everywhere and it looks like a minefield, that's not cool. And even if you have to police it, if someone else left the hole, that doesn't mean you're going to leave it too. Just clean it up. If you see some garbage in there, you clean it up. Talking about garbage, a lot of times the bigger pouch is good to put your garbage in. But a lot of fields will have like a 5-gallon bucket spread out around the fields. So at certain points, you can just dump your garbage into that bucket. Be careful when you're dumping the garbage, because sometimes you can mix good stuff with the garbage. But one tip I've seen is that sometimes just lift up the garbage pail and sweep under the garbage pail. I've seen people pull some really cool stuff from underneath those garbage pails too. So, but make sure you put them back and fill them appropriately. Again, just respect the property. Future hunts really depend on our making sure that it's left in a good shape. And people say, like, how about like in the woods? Well, yeah, woods is the same. Fields, you can obviously see holes, but woods, you want to hide it, your holes too. You don't want to leave any evidence of that. If you move a log, you put the log back. If you move a rock, you put the rock back. You shouldn't be taking walls down. They're not going to be putting them in the walls. Don't take walls down. That would be horrible. I'm talking about stuff that would be on the surface, okay? But I've had people say, well, woods don't matter. And they do matter, because people walk and hike in the woods. And if they see holes, it's like, why are these holes here? You can ruin it for everyone. So definitely fill holes, okay? I think it's common sense, and I'm preaching to the choir, but the idea is that we need to do that. All right, so take pictures. I think, like I love taking pictures, but usually they happen before and they happen after, because during you're so busy. I actually keep a camera in my pocket, because like in my vest, I keep a little camera just in case my phone dies and I can't take quick pictures. But every now and then, if I see something special, someone finds something cool in the field, I'll just take a quick picture. It's just as a memory, because that's like a one moment, it's like a Kodak moment. They find that's really kind of cool. And it's a great place to enjoy your friends, the annual hunt sometimes, because they're all over the place, and some people travel. I don't do a whole lot of traveling outside of New England. I'd love to do some of these major events, but I don't have the opportunity. Who am I? I just kind of like do the local stuff, or I do my own. But it's kind of like a social get together. It's a huge part of this field. There's a lot of socializing that goes on, and that's great. I just highlighted 4. If you're not here, please don't be offended. I have so many people that I've worked with and detected with, and I can't put everyone's picture, so don't be offended if you're not there. There's a reason to my madness here a little bit. Sean just became a dad. I've been trying to help him out. He just started, so it's like giving him some tips on even his detector. He knows more about his detector than I do, because he's got a really nice detector now. But like finding sites and stuff, I've helped him out a lot, and trying to mentor him a little bit. But he just became a dad, and I think that's really cool. So I've got to give his it's a boy. I believe it's a little boy. I got to give him a little mini detector when he gets a little bit older. I think that'd be so cool. My 2 buds on the side, Dan and Seth. Humbly, they're 2 of the best. They are good, but they don't brag about it. They detectors of the year. They've got all the awards, but they don't brag about it. They're just really good at what they do. And they've become close partners with me recently. We've done a lot more hunting together and sharing sites. It's a whole paradigm shift. As you hear me say this a lot, people never used to tell people where they win, and I don't believe in that. I believe in sharing and benefiting each other. Granted, people have their own sites and they work for them, and I respect that if you want to get first crack at it. But I enjoy being with somebody and hunting with somebody, even if they're finding and stuff. That makes me just as happy. And these guys have kind of bought into that, so it's an honor to hunt with those guys. My buddy, good friend for 30 years, 35 years, 37 years, I've been detecting, Captain Andy. We did our first presentation together back in the day, and this guy's he's pretty famous on the internet. He's been on TV. He's writing an article now for some magazines. So he's a very humble guy, and he's been the president of the club as long as I know. But he teased me about my loving pirate stuff. So this is kind of a payback, Andy. I had photoshopped you into Johnny Depp's pirate costume. You look good. You make a mean-looking pirate there, Andy. You look good, brother. And my friend on the right, 37 years, this guy has been detecting with me, and he's been detecting himself 49 years. The guy's just amazing. And he's kind of like my regular go-to weekend hunter. We call ourselves the 3 amigos. He and another buddy, Rich, we go together. And Rich is pretty humble too. Doesn't like his picture out there, so I honored that for Rich. So Rich, I'm recognizing you, but I know you don't like your picture. But Frank, he likes the picture when he's looking good, and he's looking really good here. And he taught me to always have a plan B. And that is, when you go out, wherever you're detecting, obviously not a seated hunt, but when you go detecting, it's always nice to have a plan B in mind. if plan A doesn't turn out too well, we get something else to do. And it's usually something local. He's an amazing guy. He knows so much about so many different things. You find something, you show it to him, he knows what it is. He's probably the single best detectorist I've ever met. He's found more rings, and he's an overall, he's like the overall detectorist. He does everything from water to land, everything in between. He's probably found enough rings in his career, he could open a jewelry store. The guy's just amazing. So shout out to you, Frank. And I know you don't use the internet, so you won't be seeing this. I have to share this privately with you. All right. So I mean, it's not about how many finds you end up in the end of the day in your pouch. Really, that's not what this is about. I don't think. It's enjoying the experience. You know, luck also has a role. All right. Like, I'm sorry, but if you don't put your coil over it, you're not going to find it. So no matter how good you are. So never feel bad if you don't find that special prize or token. You know, they're out there, and it's kind of like winning the lottery. If you get lucky, you get it. You know, what can I say? Sometimes there's some really cool prizes, and you know, it's just fate. But thanks for watching. If you like this, please subscribe. Pass the word. I'm just started. Only been doing this a few weeks actually. Nobody knows me. I'm a nobody on the internet, so I'm just kind of like build this up. It'll take years probably for me to get the subscribers to even consider monetizing it, but it's nice to see it grow. I've done some live streams, so check them out. If you see anything game changer, it's usually something I've been working on. But there's a QR link. More importantly, we have a free non-commercial Facebook group that we share ideas, and it's a really great thing because people are sharing and posting, and it's really, really growing well. We're almost to 200 members. I am so psyched. And we have pretty much every other week, kind of like a poor man's live stream where we just have a meet and greet and we talk detecting or talk stuff up. So please join us. If you have the QR link in front of you, it should work. You just hold your phone up to it and it will bring you right to the Facebook site. And then if you don't have that, you can just look up Game Changing Metal Detecting, and it should pop up in either YouTube or Facebook. That's kind of our presence. Just to finalize it, this is last slide. It's just to reach me. I put my phone number here. It's my private number, so I don't usually give that out. But if you were patient enough to watch till the end, that's my number. Got a couple different emails. This one again is my detecting one. WADetectForYou@gmail. We'll get you there. So that's it. So thanks so much for popping in and attending, and we'll catch you on the rebound. Take care.